Russell Wilson, and it pains me to say this because I've always liked him. He's a self-made man. Maybe he overachieved, but there are chunks of time this season he looked like an old man. He looked like he woke up as an old quarterback. The dynamics were just no longer there. The ability to go downfield, the ability to move the pocket, the ability to bust plays and run and lead a hurry up offense. None of that was there. Now, part of that might have been because of Nathaniel Hackett and the playbook, and that coach has been fired. But he put on quite a show against the Chargers on Sunday. What's hurt Russell Wilson, aside from the age factor and the injury factor, and I do think we're going to find out that there was a torn labrum in that shoulder. I think what's really hurt him was he lost so many players. He's got all these wide receivers, and they're all hurt. They've really hardly been on the field at the same time together. But they're maybe a year off season with a new coach and getting everybody who had surgery healthy will help. But they had wide receivers are in and out of the lineup. They lost Javonte Williams, their big heavy duty running back. They lost their left tackle. They had problems at center. It was shameful because they were the absolute dead last in offense in the league and number one in the National Football League in defense, and yet they only won 5 games. So maybe this is just one of those aberrations of a season, but we'll find out in the offseason how badly hurt Russell Wilson was, and then we'll find out whether he's got any gas left in the tank. But they went out with a win. It's going to be fascinating to see what they do in terms of who becomes their head coach. To me, from a distance, outside the circle looking in, I look at them on paper and say, boy, there's a lot of parts here, and you got Russell Wilson. But it didn't work, and for a wide variety of reasons. And now they got a subliminal problem. They got no draft picks, John, and they got no cap space, and they got Russell Wilson for at least 4 more years. So it's got to work, but we'll see if they can all get healthy, and then maybe it's a bounce back thing.
Yes, I mean, it must be hard for some of these potential coaches to look at that job. Like you say, they've got some parts, but they don't have a lot of wiggle room, So I know Harbaugh's been mentioned as one of the guys there. We'll find out what happens next season.
On we go. The other team that I think grossly underachieved, and they've just dumped all over the coach. Kliff Kingsbury, the general manager, Steve Keim, been fired. Cardinals spent a lot of money. They got Kyler Murray at quarterback, spent a lot of money on wide receivers, DeAndre Hopkins. They traded away draft picks. They thought this would be a breakthrough season, and it just failed miserably. And they wind up at 4-13. And Kingsbury is out. He was fired on Monday. And I had seen this coming because I had huge questions about that head coach. You looked at Arizona and you saw this firepower, and every season opposing defensive coordinators caught up to him. The record at the end of the season was horrific. Kliff Kingsbury, they've lost 18 of their last 25. Now, they don't have Kyler Murray here at the end of this season because of the big knee injury. But it was just not this season. His record at the end of the season in Arizona is amazing. 17-44 over his full tenure. Mm-hmm. The second half of all seasons, 17-44, which leads me to believe people caught up to him, and he never quite figured out how to do other creative things once they started to take away what had made Arizona so explosive at the start of the season. But they do have the quarterback in place. They do have an owner that's spent money. It'll be interesting to see what Arizona does in terms of, is it a good landing spot or is it a dysfunctional franchise? Your thoughts?
Yeah. When the Chargers moved out of town, my son adopted the Cardinals as his team. And the last number of years, they would get off to these really good starts. And my son was feeling really excited, and it always ended up in disappointment. And this year was just everything went wrong. So, they got to start over with a new head coach.
I went back and I tracked the second half of the seasons of Kingsbury, not just with the Cardinals, but what he did in college. And the numbers are staggering. I mean, it was horrific.
The same patterns.
Exact same pattern.
Wow.
So that's a deficiency in terms of the head coach, and now he's out. It'll be interesting to see if Michael Bidwell will be able to convince a marquee coach to come there. And do you want an offensive guy or do you need a defensive guy? They had a lot of pieces of the puzzle in that box too, But boy, there's a lot of psyche damage in Arizona right now. Just not a good situation.
Is Kyler Murray a long-term answer there, or is he too small of a quarterback? What do you think?
I think he's a dynamic guy. I think he's a little bit like Jalen Hurts, but I don't think he should be running at 17 times per game because he's gotten hurt. Hurts got hurt. Lamar Jackson's gotten busted up in Baltimore and now not playing. So the history is there. Quarterbacks who run don't last very long. Big issue. Okay,